Let's dive into today's story. Chapter 1. The Weight of Silence. Craig Bowen stood at the kitchen window of his Seattle home, watching 6-year-old Lily push her untouched cereal around the bowl. 3 days since Sophie's death, and the silence had become a living thing. Thick, suffocating, filling every corner of their craftsman-style house. "Daddy," Lily's voice cracked through the quiet. "Is Grandma Bertha coming today?" Craig's jaw tightened at the mention of his mother-in-law. Bertha Galloway had called 14 times since Sophie passed. He'd answered twice. Both conversations had been accusations disguised as concern. "Yes, sweetheart. For the funeral planning." Lily's face fell. She pushed away from the table, Sophie's old iPhone clutched in her small hands. Craig had given it to her loaded with photos and videos of her mother. Something to hold on to. Craig's mind drifted back 12 years to Pike Place Market, where he'd met Sophie Galloway. She'd been photographing the flower vendors, her red hair catching the morning light. He'd been a newly minted clinical psychologist, cocky with a fresh PhD, thinking he understood the human mind. Sophie had taught him different. She'd taught him about intuition, about reading the silences between words. Their marriage had been unexpected, a whirlwind courtship that Bertha had opposed from day one. "He's studying you," she'd told Sophie, "making you his little experiment." But Sophie had laughed it off, called it her mother's dramatic nature. The diagnosis came 5 years ago, a rare autoimmune disorder, manageable with the right medication and monitoring. Sophie had been vigilant at first, tracking symptoms, maintaining schedules. Then last year, something shifted. Her health deteriorated despite increased treatment. The doctors were baffled. Craig had been baffled too, until 3 months ago. The doorbell's aggressive ring announced Bertha's arrival. Craig opened it to find her standing rigid in black, as if she'd been dressed for a funeral long before Sophie died. "Craig." Her voice could freeze water. At 68, Bertha Galloway was all sharp angles, pointed chin, narrow eyes, thin lips pressed into permanent disapproval. "We need to discuss the arrangements. I've taken the liberty of contacting Morrison Funeral Home. Sophie would have wanted tradition. I've already made arrangements with Evergreen Memorial," Craig said evenly. "Sophie and I discussed her wishes." Bertha's nostrils flared. "Her wishes? You mean the wishes you convinced her she had?" She pushed past him into the house. "Where's Lily? I need to see my granddaughter." "She's processing." "We both are." "Processing." Bertha's laugh was bitter. "Is that what you call it in your line of work? Tell me, Dr. Bowen, did you process my daughter to death with all your psychological mumbo-jumbo?" Craig's hands clenched at his sides, but his voice remained calm. Years of clinical training had taught him to recognize manipulation tactics. Bertha was textbook, narcissistic personality disorder with sociopathic tendencies. He diagnosed her within months of meeting her, watched her systematically try to control Sophie through guilt, isolation, and gaslighting. The autopsy showed Sophie died from complications related to her condition, Craig said. "Nothing more, nothing less." "Did it? Or did it show what you wanted it to show?" Bertha stepped closer, her perfume, heavy and cloying, invading his space. "I know things, Craig. I know what you're capable of." Before Craig could respond, Lily appeared in the hallway, phone clutched to her chest. "Grandma." Bertha's face transformed into a mask of grief. "Oh, my poor darling. Come to Grandma. Let me take you somewhere safe, away from all this sadness." Lily didn't move. She looked at Craig, then back at her grandmother. "I want to stay with Daddy." Something dark flickered across Bertha's face before the grieving grandmother mask returned. "Of course, sweetheart. Grandma understands. But remember, you can tell Grandma anything. Any secrets. Especially about Mommy." "Okay." Craig felt ice slide down his spine. He'd been right to worry. Bertha was already working on Lily, planting seeds. After Bertha left, promising to return for the funeral with the whole family, Craig found Lily in her room, staring at Sophie's phone. "She keeps asking me about Mommy's phone," Lily whispered. "She says there's something on it. Something important." Craig knelt beside his daughter. "Did you show Grandma anything?" Lily shook her head, then paused. "Grandma showed me how to delete videos. She said some memories are too sad to keep." Tears welled in her eyes. "But I didn't want to forget Mommy." Craig's blood ran cold. "What video, Lily?" "I don't know. Grandma deleted it before I could really see." "But..." She looked up at him with Sophie's green eyes. "Mommy sounded scared in it. And Grandma was there. That night. After Lily fell asleep, Craig sat in his study surrounded by notebooks. For months, he'd been documenting discrepancies, medication doses that didn't match prescriptions, Sophie's symptoms worsening after Bertha's visits, the way his wife had become increasingly anxious and confused. He'd been trained to observe, to analyze patterns. And the pattern was clear. Bertha had been slowly poisoning her own daughter. But knowing and proving were different things. He'd needed evidence, something concrete. The missing video might have been it. Craig opened his laptop to the cloud backup he'd set up on Sophie's phone, something Bertha didn't know about. If the video had existed, even for a moment, it would be there. It took 20 minutes of searching deleted files, but he found it. The timestamp was from 2 weeks before Sophie died. His hand trembled as he clicked play. Sophie's face filled the screen, pale and drawn. She was in their bedroom, phone propped on the dresser. "Craig, if you're watching this, I need you to know." Her voice broke. "I think my mother has been. I found pills hidden in my vitamin bottle. Different pills. And she's been bringing me tea every day, insisting I drink it. I'm scared." The door opened in the video. Bertha entered, holding a cup. Her face, when she saw the phone recording, transformed into something Craig had never fully seen before, pure malice. "Sophie, darling, you're confused again," Bertha's voice cooed from the video. "The fever makes you paranoid. Now, drink your tea and delete this foolishness. You don't want Craig to think you're losing your mind, do you?" The video ended abruptly. Craig sat back, his psychologist's mind analyzing even as his husband's heart shattered. Bertha hadn't just poisoned Sophie's body, she'd been gaslighting her, making her doubt her own sanity. Classic abuser behavior. But why? What drove a mother to murder her own child? The answer came from another file on Sophie's phone, her mother's financial records, which Sophie had apparently been investigating before she died. Bertha was drowning in gambling debts. And Sophie's life insurance policy, the one her father had left her, named Bertha as secondary beneficiary if Craig was deemed unfit or deceased. Bertha hadn't just been killing Sophie. She'd been planning to frame Craig for it. The funeral was in 2 days. Bertha would make her move there. Craig was certain of it. She'd want witnesses, drama, maximum impact. She'd try to destroy him publicly while securing Lily and the insurance money. But Craig Bowen hadn't spent 15 years studying the darkest corners of the human psyche without learning a few things. If Bertha wanted a psychological war, he'd give her one. He just had to make sure Lily was protected. And that this time, he'd have every witness he needed. Chapter 2. Threads of the Past. The morning before the funeral, Craig drove Lily to Sophie's sister's house. Carrie Galloway had always been different from Bertha, warmer, more rational. She'd escaped her mother's orbit years ago, moving to Tacoma and limiting contact to holidays and obligatory phone calls. Carrie opened the door with red-rimmed eyes, pulling Craig into an unexpected hug. "I can't believe she's gone." "Neither can I." Craig watched Lily run inside to play with Carrie's golden retriever. "We need to talk." Privately. In Carrie's kitchen, Craig laid out everything. The medication discrepancies, Sophie's video, Bertha's financial troubles, the insurance policy. Carrie's face grew paler with each revelation. "I knew Mom was controlling, but murder?" She gripped her coffee mug. "Though, God, there were signs. Do you remember when Sophie first got diagnosed?" Craig nodded. Mom was almost excited. She loved playing the devoted mother, posting on Facebook about her brave daughter's battle. When Sophie started improving on the new treatment, Mom seemed disappointed. Carrie's voice cracked. "I thought I was imagining it. Being cruel." "You weren't," Craig said gently. "Your mother has Munchausen by proxy tendencies, combined with narcissistic personality disorder. Sophie's illness gave her attention, purpose, control. When Sophie got better, Bertha lost her identity as the suffering, saintly mother. So she made Sophie sicker." Carrie's hand covered her mouth. And when that wasn't enough, she decided to finish it and profit. But she needed someone to blame. Carrie looked up sharply. "You. She's been poisoning everyone against you for months. I heard her at Mom's birthday party, telling relatives you were controlling Sophie's medical care, isolating her. She was building a narrative." Craig's mind flashed back to that party 3 months ago. Sophie had been too weak to attend, but Bertha insisted Craig come to maintain appearances. He'd felt the hostile stares, the whispered conversations that stopped when he approached. He'd thought it was just grief and worry about Sophie's condition. It had been character assassination. She's going to accuse me tomorrow, Craig said. At the funeral. She'll have police there, probably Detective Keith Ponce. He goes to her church. She'll make a scene. And between her pre-laid groundwork and her theatrical grief, people will believe her. What are you going to do? Craig smiled thinly. I'm going to let her hang herself with her own rope. But I need your help. And I need Lily safe. Anything. Keep Lily with you during the funeral until I text you. Not here. Somewhere public, with cameras. Bring her in at the exact moment I specify. He pulled out his phone, showing Carrie the cloud-backed video. This is our insurance. But timing is everything. Bertha needs to fully commit to her accusation before the truth comes out. If we play this right, she won't just lose, she'll confess to everything. Carrie watched the video, tears streaming down her face. Sophie knew. She tried to tell us. And Bertha gaslit her into silence. Craig's voice hardened. Tomorrow, we make sure Sophie's voice is finally heard. That afternoon, Craig met with his lawyer, Harvey Barajas, a shark in an expensive suit who specialized in criminal defense. You're absolutely certain she'll do this publicly? Harvey asked, reviewing the evidence Craig had compiled. Bertha craves attention and validation. A private accusation wouldn't give her the martyrdom she desires. She'll want witnesses to see her bravely confronting her daughter's killer. Harvey leaned back. If you're right, this is either brilliant or insane. In my experience, the line between the two is thinner than people think. Craig's eyes were hard. I've spent months being careful, methodical, professional. Watching my wife die while I gathered evidence like I was building a case study. But Bertha made one critical mistake. What's that? She underestimated how well I understand predators. I've been studying them my entire career. And tomorrow, I'm going to show her what happens when the prey has been watching the hunter all along. Harvey studied him. You're not the same guy I met at the Bar Association dinner last year. That guy's wife was still alive. Craig stood, collected his files. This guy has a daughter to protect and a promise to keep. That evening, Craig sat with Lily, helping her pick out clothes for the funeral. She held up a navy blue dress with white flowers. Mommy loved this one, Lily said quietly. She said it made me look like a bluebird. Then that's perfect. Craig knelt beside her. Lily, tomorrow is going to be hard. Grandma Bertha might say things, mean things about Daddy. But I need you to be brave, like Mommy was brave. Can you do that? Lily nodded solemnly. Aunt Carrie told me I'm going to help. That I'm going to save you, like you tried to save Mommy. Craig's throat tightened. You are going to help. But remember, no matter what happens, Daddy loves you. And Mommy loved you. That's the only truth that matters. Grandma said Mommy's in heaven because you didn't take good care of her. Lily's voice was small. But that's not true, right? You tried. I saw you. Every day, you tried. Craig pulled his daughter close. I tried with everything I had. Sometimes love isn't enough to stop bad things. But tomorrow, we're going to make sure the truth comes out. For Mommy. Later, alone in his study, Craig made the final preparations. He'd contacted Detective Ponce anonymously, tipping him that there would be a significant disclosure at Sophie's funeral regarding her death. He'd positioned his colleague, Dr. Travis Figueroa, a forensic psychologist, to witness and potentially testify. He'd arranged for the funeral home's security cameras to be functioning perfectly. The trap was set. Now he just needed Bertha to walk into it. He pulled up the cloud-backed video one more time, watching his wife's frightened face. I'm sorry I couldn't save you, Soph, he whispered. But I promise, I'll get justice. And I'll keep Lily safe, no matter what it takes. The video showed Sophie's last moment of clarity, her last attempt to expose the truth. Tomorrow, Craig would make sure that clarity cut through all of Bertha's lies. His phone buzzed. A text from Carrie. Lily's asleep. She's safe. See you tomorrow. Let's end this. Craig replied, We will. Sophie deserves that much. Chapter 3. The stage is set. The morning of Sophie's funeral arrived with rare Seattle sunshine, as if nature itself refused to read the room. Evergreen Memorial Chapel stood on a hill overlooking Puget Sound, elegant and serene, everything Sophie had loved. Craig adjusted his tie in the chapel's bathroom mirror. His reflection showed a man who'd aged years and weeks, deeper lines around his eyes, silver threading his dark hair where there'd been none before. But his gaze was steady, focused. He'd been awake since 4 a.m., reviewing every angle. Bertha would make her move during the service. likely during the eulogy portion when emotions ran highest and people were most susceptible to dramatic revelations. She'd want Detective Ponce positioned near Craig for maximum impact. She'd want the video evidence discovered publicly, forcing immediate action. What Bertha didn't know was that Craig had already given Ponce the real evidence, sealed in a lawyer's envelope with instructions to open only if Bertha's accusations began. The detective, despite his church connection to Bertha, was professional enough to recognize legitimate concerns about evidence tampering and witness manipulation. Craig entered the chapel's main hall. Sophie's closed casket sat beneath a spray of white roses, her favorites. Photos lined the walls. Sophie laughing at their wedding, holding newborn Lily, capturing sunsets, living a life Bertha had stolen. Early arrivals trickled in. Craig recognized colleagues from the university where Sophie had worked as a research photographer, neighbors, friends from Lily's school. And then Bertha's contingent arrived, a wave of black-clad relatives Craig barely knew, their faces already set in judgment. Bertha entered like a queen attending court, draped in dramatic black lace. Her sister, Judith Becker, supported her arm, though Bertha seemed far from weak. She scanned the room until her eyes locked on Craig, and something triumphant flickered in her gaze. Craig, Bertha approached with Judith flanking her. Such a lovely service you've arranged. Though Sophie would have preferred the church, of course. She told me many times. Sophie told me she wanted to be here. Craig replied evenly. Overlooking the water, she loved to photograph. The Sophie you knew, perhaps. Bertha's voice carried, attracting attention. My daughter kept many things from you toward the end. Fears, concerns, evidence. Craig saw Detective Keith Ponce enter, civilian clothes, but cop eyes scanning the room. 2 uniformed officers followed, taking positions near the exits. The trap was springing exactly as predicted. Mom, please. Carrie appeared, moving to Craig's side. This isn't the time, isn't it? Bertha's voice rose. When is the time to speak truth? When my daughter is already dead. When my granddaughter is living with the man who... Mrs. Galloway. Harvey Barajas materialized smoothly between them. Perhaps we should discuss this privately. I'm done with private, Bertha announced. I'm done protecting reputations while my daughter lies murdered. The room fell silent. Craig felt every eye turn toward them. Right on schedule. The funeral director, Morton Estes, hurried over. Please, everyone. The service is about to begin. If we could all take our seats. In a moment, Bertha pulled away from Judith's restraining hand. First, I need people to know the truth about Dr. Craig Bowen. Detective Ponce moved closer, his hand casually near his hip. The 2 uniforms shifted position. Craig remained perfectly still, his psychologist's training keeping his face neutral even as his heart hammered. Mom, stop, Carrie pleaded. You're making a scene at Sophie's funeral. Your sister deserves justice. Bertha's eyes glistened with what looked like tears, but Craig recognized as theatrical glycerin. She deserves people knowing what really happened. She deserves. Everyone, please take your seats. Morton's voice carried authority. We'll begin the service now. Mrs. Galloway, I must insist. Bertha allowed herself to be guided toward the front row, but her eyes never left Craig. The message was clear. This is just the opening act. The service began. A minister who'd never met Sophie delivered generic platitudes. Craig's colleague, Dr. Frankie Neal from the psychology department, gave a eulogy about Sophie's kindness and artistic vision. Carrie spoke through tears about childhood memories. Then Morton announced, Sophie's mother, Bertha Galloway, would like to say a few words. Craig's muscles tensed. Here it comes. Bertha approached the podium with practiced vulnerability, dabbing her eyes with a black handkerchief. She looked out at the assembled crowd, nearly 100 people, and began to speak. My beautiful Sophie was taken from us too soon. Bertha's voice trembled perfectly. For months, I watched her decline. I begged her doctors to investigate further. I pleaded with Sophie to reconsider her living situation. Her gaze swept to Craig. But my daughter was trapped. Whispers rippled through the crowd. Detective Ponce stepped closer to the podium, frowning. Trapped by manipulation. Trapped by control. Trapped by a man who studied minds for a living and used that knowledge too. Mrs. Galloway. Ponce interrupted firmly. This is inappropriate. Is truth inappropriate, detective? Bertha's voice rang out. When I have evidence that my daughter was systematically poisoned. When I have video proof of her fears. When I've spent months trying to save her from a monster in a psychologist's suit. The room erupted. Gasps, shouts, people standing. Craig remained seated, still as stone. Harvey moved closer, phone in hand, recording everything. He killed her. Bertha screamed, pointing dramatically at Craig. I have proof. I have Sophie's own testimony. I have the video she made before she died, accusing him. Detective Ponce held up his hands. Mrs. Galloway, please step away from the microphone. Everyone, please remain calm. But Bertha was in full performance now. I came here today to honor my daughter. But I cannot stay silent while her murderer sits there, pretending to grieve. Detective Ponce, I demand you arrest Craig Bowen immediately. The two uniformed officers moved toward Craig. Harvey stepped forward, lawyer mode activated. My client is not speaking without counsel present. This is a funeral, not an interrogation. Your client, Bertha spat the word, is a manipulative killer who used his psychological training to. Where is this video? Ponce's voice cut through. The one you claim is evidence. Bertha's face lit with triumph. She turned to Judith. Give me my granddaughter. Now. Craig's blood ran cold. This was the move he'd anticipated. Bertha planned to use Lily to parade his traumatized daughter in front of everyone as a prop in her revenge drama. But Lily wasn't there. She was safe with Carrie at a coffee shop 12 blocks away, surrounded by witnesses and cameras, waiting for Craig's signal. Lily's not here, Craig said calmly, speaking for the first time. Every eye turned to him. I thought it better that a 6-year-old not attend her mother's funeral. Too traumatic. How convenient. Bertha's mask slipped, showing rage. Hiding my granddaughter. Probably destroying evidence, as we speak. Detective, he's had access to Sophie's phone, my daughter's last testimony. He's had weeks to delete, manipulate. Actually, Harvey interrupted smoothly. I have Sophie's phone. It's been in my firm's evidence lockbox since Ms. Bowen's death, per her husband's instructions. We've also made several forensic copies of its entire contents, including cloud backups and deleted files. Craig watched Bertha process this, saw the micro-expression of confusion before she recovered. She'd thought he was just a grief-stricken husband, too emotional to think strategically. She'd underestimated him completely. Then let's see it. Bertha demanded. Let everyone see what my daughter recorded. Let them see his guilt. Detective Ponce looked at Craig. Dr. Bowen, do you consent to this? I do, Craig said quietly. But I request that we view it privately first, Detective. This is still my wife's funeral. These people came to mourn, not witness a circus. My daughter's murder is not a circus. Bertha shrieked. But her eyes betrayed her. She'd wanted the public spectacle, the immediate arrest. Craig dragged away in front of everyone. Mrs. Galloway, Ponce said firmly, you need to come with me. We'll review your evidence at the station. If your claims have merit, appropriate action will be taken. No. Bertha's voice hit a desperate pitch. It needs to be now. These people need to see. They need to know what he is. Mom, stop. Carrie's voice carried from the back of the chapel. She walked forward, phone in her hand. Just stop. Carrie. Bertha's face transformed. Confusion, then calculation. Darling, you don't understand. Your sister. I understand perfectly. Carrie stood beside Craig. I understand that you're lying. I understand that you've been lying for a very long time. And I understand what you really are, Mom. Finally, Bertha stared at her younger daughter, and for the first time, Craig saw genuine fear cross her face. The trap was closing. Now came the moment that would determine everything. Craig pulled out his phone and sent the text. Now. Chapter 4. The Reckoning begins. The chapel doors opened, and every head turned. Lily walked in, navy blue dress pristine, Sophie's phone clutched in her small hands. But it wasn't fear on her face, it was determination. Craig had spent hours preparing her, explaining what Grandma Bertha might say, ensuring she understood she was helping Mommy tell the truth. Behind Lily, Craig's forensic psychologist colleague Dr. Travis Figueroa entered, along with 2 witnesses from the coffee shop, strangers who'd agreed to testify to Lily's whereabouts and state of mind. Every detail documented, every angle covered. Lily, Bertha's voice pitched higher. Sweetheart, come to Grandma. I need that phone. I need to show everyone. No. Lily's voice was small but clear. She walked straight to Detective Ponce, looking up at him with Sophie's green eyes. You're the police? I am, honey. Detective Ponce. I need to show you something. Lily held up the phone. Grandma said I deleted it. But Daddy showed me that nothing's ever really gone. It's still there, in the cloud. She stumbled slightly over the technical term Craig had taught her. The video Mommy made. The one Grandma told me to erase. The chapel fell silent enough to hear the water fountain outside. What video, sweetheart? Ponce knelt down to her level, his voice gentle. The video of Grandma giving Mommy the bad medicine. Bertha made a sound like a wounded animal. She's confused. She's 6 years old. Craig has manipulated. My client hasn't spoken to his daughter about any video, Harvey interjected smoothly. Lily mentioned it to her Aunt Carrie yesterday, entirely unprompted. We have witnesses. Lily, baby, you don't understand what you saw. Bertha's voice took on a desperate sweetness. Grandma was helping Mommy feel better. Sometimes medicine looks scary, but you told Mommy the medicine was vitamins, Lily said, her voice stronger now. But Mommy knew it wasn't. She told you to stop. And you said, Lily's face scrunched, remembering. You said if she told anyone, you'd make sure I went away. That Daddy would go to jail, and I'd be all alone. Craig felt his chest constrict. Bertha had threatened his child, had used Lily as leverage to keep Sophie silent. That's ridiculous. Bertha's composure was fracturing. I would never threaten my own granddaughter. This is clearly coaching, detective. This is exactly what Craig does. He's a psychologist. He knows how to manipulate children's memories, implant false. Actually, Dr. Figueroa spoke up, his deep voice calm and authoritative. I interviewed Lily this morning, before any discussion of today's events. Standard child psychology protocols, fully recorded. Her account has been consistent and shows no signs of coaching or implanted memories. I'd be happy to submit my findings. Bertha's face went from red to white. She looked around wildly, at the officers moving closer, at the crowd's expressions shifting from confused to horrified, at her sister Judith backing away from her. May I see the video, Lily? Ponce asked gently. Lily nodded and handed him the phone. Craig had already cued it to the right file. Ponce's face went carefully neutral as he watched, but Craig saw his jaw muscles tighten. Mrs. Galloway. Ponce stood slowly. I need you to come with me. Now. This is insane. Bertha's voice cracked. You're taking the word of a child over mine? I'm the victim here. My daughter is dead because of him. She pointed at Craig. He poisoned her. He controlled her. The video shows you, Mrs. Galloway, Ponce said flatly, putting pills into what you call special vitamins, instructing your daughter to take them. And when she questions you, threatening her. It's all recorded. Sophie was confused. She was sick. She didn't know what she was saying. She knew enough to hide her phone and record you. Craig's voice cut through the chapel, cold and precise. She knew enough to back everything up to the cloud. She knew enough to leave documentation of her symptoms correlating exactly with your visits. She knew, Bertha. And so did I. I turned to him. He stood, moving to stand beside Lily. For 6 months, I documented everything. Craig continued. Every medication discrepancy. Every time Sophie got worse after you helped. Every lie you told medical staff about her symptoms. I have pharmacy records showing prescriptions you filled in Sophie's name without her knowledge. I have testimony from Sophie's doctors that her actual condition was improving until you started your special care regimen. I have financial records showing your gambling debts and your knowledge of Sophie's insurance policy. Bertha's face twisted. You arrogant bastard. You think you're so smart, with your degrees and your analysis. You knew nothing about my daughter. I created her. I raised her. She was mine long before you came along with your smug superiority. Created her? Carrie's voice shook with rage. You destroyed her. You've been destroying Sophie since she was a child, Mom. Making her sick for attention, sabotaging her relationships, controlling every aspect of her life. And when she finally had something you couldn't control, Craig, her marriage, her happiness, you couldn't stand it. Shut up. Bertha whirled on Carrie. You have no idea what I've sacrificed, what I've endured. Sophie was special. She needed me. And then he took her away, made her think she could be independent, could make her own choices, could live her own life. Craig's voice was ice. Yes, I did encourage that. What a terrible husband I was, wanting my wife to be healthy and autonomous. You poisoned her against me. Bertha's mask was completely gone now, showing the monster beneath. Turned my own daughter against her mother. She was supposed to come back to me, especially when she got sick. But you kept her away, With your poison in her ear, your control. Mrs. Galloway. Ponce's voice carried warning. I strongly suggest you stop talking. But Bertha was past stopping, rage and fear and narcissistic injury flooding out. She was my daughter. Mine. I gave her life. I had every right to take it back if she was going to waste it on a man who saw her as nothing but a case study. The chapel exploded with gasps and shouts. The two uniformed officers moved in, flanking Bertha. Did you just confess? Ponce's voice cut through the noise. Mrs. Galloway, did you just admit to killing your daughter? Bertha seemed to realize what she'd said. Her face went slack, then calculative. I was speaking metaphorically. Grief makes people say. You said you had the right to take her life back, Ponce said flatly. In front of 100 witnesses. I want a lawyer, Bertha said suddenly. I'm not saying anything else without a lawyer. Too late for that wisdom. Ponce nodded to the uniformed officers. Bertha Galloway, you're under arrest for suspicion of murder in the death of Sophie Bowen. You have the right to remain silent. The Miranda rights echoed through the chapel as officers cuffed Bertha's wrists. She struggled, her carefully constructed composure completely shattered. This is wrong. I'm the victim. He manipulated all of you. He's dangerous. Someone needs to save Lily from. I'll be saving Lily, Craig said quietly, pulling his daughter close. From you. As officers led Bertha toward the exit, she turned one last time, her face contorted with hatred. You think you've won? You think this is over? You have no idea what I'm capable of, Craig. No idea what I've already done. The video isn't everything. There's so much you don't know. So much Sophie never. Keep moving, ma'am, the officer said firmly, guiding her out. The chapel remained frozen in shocked silence. Then, like a spell breaking, people began talking at once. Questions, accusations, disbelief. Craig felt Harvey's hand on his shoulder. We need to get you and Lily out of here, the lawyer said. Media will swarm this place within the hour. Craig nodded, then looked at Detective Ponce. There's more evidence. Documentation, witness statements, medical records. It's all organized chronologically. I'll bring everything to the station. Ponce studied him. You were waiting for this. You knew she'd crack. I studied human behavior for 15 years, Detective. Bertha's type always cracks when their narrative control slips. They can't help it. Craig's voice was hollow. I just wish Sophie had lived to see it. Daddy. Lily tugged his sleeve. Did I do good? Did I help Mommy? Craig knelt, pulling his daughter into a fierce hug. You did perfect, sweetheart. You were so brave. Mommy would be so proud. Over Lily's shoulder, Craig looked at Sophie's casket. The trap had worked. Bertha had confessed publicly. Justice was beginning. But something in Bertha's final words nagged at him. There's so much you don't know. What else had she done? Chapter 5. Unraveling Secrets. The police station's interview room was deliberately uncomfortable. Hard chairs, fluorescent lights that seemed designed to induce headaches. Walls painted the color of institutional depression. Craig sat with Harvey on one side and Detective Ponce across a metal table covered in documents. This is impressive, Ponce admitted, flipping through Craig's meticulously organized evidence. Most people don't think to document this thoroughly. Most people aren't clinical psychologists married to victims of Munchausen by proxy perpetrators, Craig replied. I recognized the pattern 6 months ago. I just needed proof. Ponce pulled out a timeline Craig had created. You've got her visits cross-referenced with Sophie's symptom flare-ups. Pharmacy records. Even security footage from the pharmacy showing her picking up prescriptions you say were fraudulent. Digoxin, Craig said. A heart medication. In therapeutic doses, it's life-saving. In excessive amounts, especially for someone with Sophie's autoimmune condition, it's fatal. Bertha was a nurse 40 years ago. She knew enough to make it look like Sophie's condition was worsening naturally. Why not just report your suspicions? Craig's laugh was bitter. To whom? Bertha's a respected church member, beloved in the community. Sophie herself doubted her own perceptions because Bertha had been gaslighting her since childhood. And I'm the husband who stands to inherit. Any accusation from me would look self-serving. He paused. I needed incontrovertible evidence. I needed Bertha to expose herself. Harvey leaned forward. My client spent months walking a tightrope, Detective. He couldn't alert Bertha to his suspicions, or she'd have changed tactics. He couldn't go public without solid evidence, or he risked losing credibility and custody of Lily. He had to watch his wife die while building a case. I tried to protect Sophie, Craig's voice cracked. I switched her medication suppliers, installed cameras, monitored everything Bertha brought into our house. But Sophie, he stopped, composing himself. Sophie loved her mother despite everything. She kept letting Bertha back in, kept hoping her mother would change. And Bertha used that hope to kill her. Ponce was silent for a moment, then pulled out his tablet. I want to show you something. After Bertha's arrest, we got a warrant for her house. We found journals. Craig felt ice slide down his spine. Journals? 20 years worth. Detailed accounts of helping Sophie through various illnesses, most of which seemed to have occurred only when Bertha was around. Ponce turned the tablet toward Craig. It gets worse. There are entries about your daughter. Craig's hands gripped the table edge hard enough to hurt. What about Lily? Plans. Bertha was documenting Lily's concerning behaviors, setting up a narrative that the child was disturbed, possibly dangerous. She was building a case to take custody after Sophie died and you were arrested for murder. The room tilted. Craig forced himself to breathe. She was going to take Lily. She was going to take everything, Harvey said grimly. Insurance money, custody, the house Sophie owned before the marriage. She'd painted herself as the heroic grandmother saving a traumatized child from a murderous father. Jesus Christ, Craig whispered. Then, sharper, is Lily in danger? If Bertha makes bail. She's not making bail, Ponce interrupted. Not with a public confession and evidence of premeditated murder. But there's another problem. He pulled out more documents. Your wife's sister, Carrie. Has she mentioned anything unusual to you? Like what? Like the fact that her mother tried the same thing with her 25 years ago. The room went silent. Carrie had appendicitis at 15, Ponce continued. Routine surgery, should have been fine. But she kept getting infections, complications. Took 6 months to fully recover. Medical records from that time show Bertha insisted on doing all the wound care herself, refused help from nurses. When they finally barred her from the hospital room after the third infection, Carrie healed within 2 weeks. Craig felt sick. Carrie never told me. She might not have connected it. A lot of people don't recognize abuse until they see it happen to someone else. Ponce tapped the file. But here's the interesting part. Carrie's ex-husband. She was married briefly in her 20s. Guy named Brad Buchanan. Died in a car accident 3 years into the marriage. Break failure. You think? I think Bertha has a pattern of eliminating people who take her daughters away from her. Buchanan's death was ruled accidental, but it happened 2 months after he'd convinced Carrie to move out of state with him. Ponce leaned back. I'm reopening that case. Craig's mind raced through implications. Bertha wasn't just a murderer. She was a serial killer who'd been operating for decades under the cover of devoted mother. How many others? Craig asked. How many people has she killed? We're looking into it. Her husband died 15 years ago. Heart attack, sudden. But he'd been talking about divorce, about taking Sophie and Carrie and leaving Bertha. Ponce's expression was grim. This woman is a black widow. She's probably been killing for 30 years. Harvey pulled out his phone. I need to call Carrie. If Bertha has anyone on the outside. Already ahead of you, Ponce said. We've got protection on Carrie and her family. And on you too, for that matter. Bertha had phone calls with people we're still identifying. Some language that suggested she wasn't working alone. Craig's blood ran cold. You think she has accomplices? I think she has a support network. Possibly other mothers with similar tendencies. We found online forum activity linking her to groups that discuss misunderstood medical advocacy, code for Munchausen by proxy communities. Ponce's disgust was evident. These people enable each other, validate their delusions, share tactics. The door opened. A female officer entered, whispering something to Ponce. His face hardened. Dr. Bowen, we need you to contact your daughter's school immediately. Someone called this morning claiming to be you, saying they'd be picking Lily up early. Craig was on his feet instantly. Where's Lily? Where is my daughter? She's safe? She's with Dr. Figueroa and 2 officers at a secure location. But someone is actively trying to access her. We think it's one of Bertha's associates. Harvey was already dialing. I'm calling the school, putting them on lockdown protocol. Craig's hands shook with rage and fear. Bertha was in custody, but her poison had spread farther than he'd realized. She'd built an entire network of enablers and sympathizers, all of them believing they were righteous advocates for children while actually being accomplices to murder. I want protective custody, Craig said. For Lily, for Carrie, for anyone Bertha might target. And I want to know everyone she's been in contact with. Everyone. Already working on it, Ponce assured him. But Dr. Bowen, you need to prepare yourself. This case is going to explode. Media, public interest, the psychological community. Everyone's going to have opinions. It's going to be brutal. Let them come, Craig said coldly. Bertha wanted attention? She's about to get more than she ever imagined. And I'm going to make sure the whole world knows exactly what she is. His phone buzzed. A text from Dr. Figueroa. Lily's asking for you. She heard something on the news. Getting scared. Craig headed for the door. I need to get to my daughter. Go, Ponce said. We'll coordinate security. But Dr. Bowen, watch your back. People like Bertha don't work alone. And they don't give up. As Craig left the station with Harvey, his mind was already racing ahead. Bertha thought she'd won for years. She'd killed with impunity, destroyed lives, controlled everyone around her. But she'd made one critical mistake. She'd underestimated the father of the child she'd tried to steal. Craig wasn't just fighting for justice anymore. He was fighting for his daughter's life. And he was done playing defense. Chapter 6. The Depths of Deception. The safe house was a modest suburban home in Bellevue, completely unremarkable except for the unmarked police car parked strategically down the street. Craig found Lily in the kitchen with Dr. Figueroa, coloring pictures of flowers, Sophie's favorite subject. Daddy, Lily launched herself at him, and Craig caught her, holding on tight. I'm here, sweetheart. You're safe. The news said Grandma's bad. That she hurt Mommy. Lily's voice was muffled against his shoulder. Is it true? Craig carried her to the living room couch, sitting with her in his lap. Yes, it's true. Grandma was sick in her mind, and she did bad things. But she can't hurt anyone anymore. Will she go to jail like on TV? Yes. For a very long time. Lily was quiet for a moment. Then, I'm glad. Is that bad? To be glad someone's going to jail? Craig's heart broke for the burden his 6-year-old carried. No, sweetheart. It's okay to be glad when dangerous people can't hurt anyone anymore. That's called justice. Dr. Figueroa approached quietly. Craig, can I speak with you privately? In the kitchen, Travis kept his voice low. Lily's handling this remarkably well, but there will be delayed trauma responses. I recommend immediate counseling, preferably someone with no connection to you professionally. Removes any conflict of interest concerns. Already arranged, Craig said. Dr. Eve Bradshaw specializes in childhood trauma. She's expecting us next week. Good. Travis hesitated. There's something else. The media is digging into your background. Someone leaked that you diagnosed Bertha months ago, but didn't report it. They're spinning it as you withholding information that could have saved Sophie. Craig felt fury rise. I couldn't report a suspicion without evidence. Bertha would have sued for slander, and with her community standing versus mine as the controlling husband, I'd have lost credibility and possibly custody. I know, but public perception doesn't run on logic. Travis pulled up a news site on his tablet. The headline read, Psychologist husband watched wife die while building case against mother-in-law. They're making me the villain. They're making you complicated, which is fair, Travis said bluntly. You did watch Sophie deteriorate while documenting instead of intervening. I tried to intervene. I changed her doctors, her medications, I monitored everything. Without telling Sophie the full truth. Without getting adult protective services involved. Without getting police involved until you had an airtight case. Travis's expression was sympathetic but honest. I understand your reasoning. But from the outside, it looks like you prioritized building a legal case over your wife's immediate safety. Craig sank into a chair, the weight of the past months crashing down. What was I supposed to do? Go to the police with a suspicion and circumstantial evidence? Bertha would have turned it around, claimed I was the abuser projecting onto her. Sophie herself doubted her own perceptions because Bertha had been gaslighting her for 30 years. Without concrete proof, I risked everything: credibility, custody, the ability to protect Lily. I know, Travis said quietly. And for what it's worth, I think you made the only choice you could. But the public doesn't understand the psychology of abuse, or how perpetrators like Bertha manipulate systems. They just see a psychologist who let his wife die. Then I'll educate them. Craig's voice hardened. I'll make this case a textbook example of covert abuse, of Munchausen by proxy, of how narcissistic predators operate in plain sight. Bertha wanted attention. She's about to become infamous. His phone rang. Harvey. "We've got a problem," the lawyer said without preamble. "Bertha's attorney is filing for mental incompetence. They're going to claim she's delusional, that her actions were the result of untreated mental illness, not criminal intent." "Absolutely not." Craig's response was immediate. "Bertha is perfectly competent. Narcissistic and sociopathic, yes, but not delusional. She knew exactly what she was doing. Can you testify to that as an expert witness?" "I'm her victim's husband. There's a conflict of interest. Not for the competency hearing. And your credentials carry weight." Harvey paused. "But Craig, if you testify, they're going to tear into every decision you made. Why you didn't report earlier, why you continued allowing Bertha access to Sophie, why you prioritized evidence collection over immediate intervention. It's going to be brutal." "Let them come," Craig said. "I've spent my career analyzing predators. Now I'll show the world how they operate." After Harvey hung up, Carrie arrived at the safe house, her face drawn with exhaustion. "The press is camped outside my house," she said. "They want comments about growing up with a serial killer mother. One reporter asked if I was complicit." Her voice cracked. Craig pulled her into the kitchen, away from Lily. "You're not responsible for Bertha's actions." "Are not." Tears spilled down Carrie's face. "I knew something was wrong. When Brad died, I knew. The brakes had just been serviced a week before. But I was so desperate to believe it was just a tragic accident, to not see what was right in front of me. That's what Bertha counted on," Craig said gently. "Predators like her rely on people's desire to see the best, to not believe evil can exist in someone who seems nurturing." "I let Sophie die," Carrie whispered. "I saw the signs, saw Mom getting more involved, saw Sophie getting weaker. And I did nothing. You didn't know? Bertha fooled everyone. Doctors, nurses, friends. She's been perfecting her act for decades. But you knew. You figured it out. Because it's literally my job to recognize pathological behavior. And even I doubted myself for months." Craig met her eyes. "We're not to blame for Bertha's evil, but we are responsible for making sure she never hurts anyone else." Carrie wiped her eyes. "What do you need from me?" "Testimony. About your childhood, Brad's death, anything that establishes Bertha's pattern. And I need you to be prepared. Her defense is going to paint her as a mentally ill grandmother who loved too much. She didn't love us. She owned us." Carrie's voice hardened. "I'll testify. I'll tell them everything." That evening, after Lily was asleep, Craig sat alone in the safe house's study, reviewing Bertha's journals that Ponce had copied for him. The entries were chilling in their clinical detail. "Sophie had another fever today. I suggested she needed more rest. Craig thinks he knows better, with his degrees and his arrogance. But I know my daughter. She needs me. Lily is showing signs of defiance. Like Sophie at that age. I'll need to address it carefully. Craig is watching, always watching. He suspects, but he has no proof. And without proof, he's powerless. The life insurance policy is secure. Once Craig is arrested, I'll have guardianship of Lily and control of Sophie's estate. Everything will return to how it should be. My girls, my control, my family." Craig felt physically ill reading the woman's twisted logic. She'd seen her daughters as possessions, extensions of herself. Any attempt at independence was betrayal. Any love for someone else was theft. And she'd been willing to kill rather than lose control. His phone buzzed. An email from an unexpected source. Keith Ponce, with a subject line that made Craig's blood run cold. "Found something in Bertha's computer. You need to see this." The attached file was a forum post from 3 months ago. Username, Devoted Mother 1957. "Sometimes children make choices that will destroy them. As mothers, we must intervene, even if it means making impossible decisions. I'm facing such a choice now. My eldest daughter is so far gone, influenced by a man who uses psychological manipulation to control her. I've tried everything. Reason, pleading, exposing the truth. Nothing works. So I've decided, if I can't save her, at least I can save her child. And punish the man who poisoned my daughter's mind. Justice comes in many forms." The responses were equally chilling. A chorus of other devoted mothers encouraging Bertha's plan, offering advice on how to intervene without detection, sharing tactics for removing toxic influences from their children's lives. Craig realized with dawning horror that Bertha wasn't an isolated case. There was an entire community of parents using love as justification for control, abuse, and murder. and they were actively helping each other. This wasn't just about Sophie anymore. This was about stopping a network of predators who operated under the guise of devoted parenting. Craig made a decision. If the media wanted to examine his choices, fine. If Bertha's defense wanted to make this a public battle, fine. He'd use every platform, every interview, every moment in the spotlight to expose not just Bertha, but the entire ecosystem that enabled her. He'd turn Bertha's desire for attention into her ultimate downfall. And he'd make sure the world learned how to recognize predators hiding behind masks of maternal devotion. Tomorrow, the real war would begin. Chapter 7. The Unmasking. The competency hearing was scheduled for 2 weeks after Sophie's funeral. In that time, Craig transformed from grieving husband into strategic warrior. He started with media. Instead of hiding, he gave a carefully crafted interview to a respected journalist, Tonia White, who specialized in true crime and family violence. The psychology community talks about Munchausen by proxy, Craig explained on camera, but we rarely discuss how these perpetrators build entire support systems that enable their abuse. Bertha Galloway didn't act in isolation. She had a network. The interview went viral. Within 48 hours, 3 other families came forward with similar stories. Mothers who'd loved too much, who'd made their children sick for attention, who'd isolated their families under the guise of protection. 2 of them had been in Bertha's online forum. Craig coordinated with Detective Ponce to provide psychological profiles of each case, demonstrating the pattern. He wrote op-eds for psychology journals. He consulted with the FBI's Behavioral Analysis Unit on identifying covert abuse networks. But his real masterstroke was yet to come. "You want to get Bertha to confess to more than just Sophie's murder?" Harvey asked during a strategy session. "She's already facing life in prison. I want to destroy the narrative she's built her entire life on," Craig replied. "The devoted mother, the martyr, the misunderstood protector. I want the world to see the monster underneath." "How?" Craig smiled, a cold, calculated expression that would have frightened anyone who didn't know him. "By giving her exactly what she wants, an audience." The competency hearing was public. Craig had made sure of it, filing motions to ensure media access, arguing that the case had significant public interest. Bertha's attorney, Ivan Carr, a slick defense lawyer who specialized in mental health defenses, had objected but lost. The courtroom was packed. Craig sat in the front row, Lily with a counselor in a private room where she could watch via closed-circuit TV but remain protected. Carrie sat beside him, her testimony already prepared. When Bertha entered, she'd clearly prepared her performance. She wore a simple dress, minimal makeup, hair pulled back, the image of a fragile, elderly woman. She dabbed at her eyes with a tissue as photographers captured every moment. Ivan Carr began his presentation. "Your Honor, my client suffers from delusional disorder combined with severe depression following the death of her beloved daughter. Her accusations against Dr. Bowen were products of a mind unable to process grief rationally. Her actions." Objection. The prosecutor, Leanna Reynolds, stood. "Defense is testifying instead of presenting evidence." Sustained. Carr pivoted, calling his first expert witness, a psychiatrist who'd spent 3 hours interviewing Bertha and concluded she was delusional. But Craig had anticipated this. Harvey had arranged for 3 independent psychiatrists to also interview Bertha, all using standardized assessment tools. All 3 had reached the same conclusion. Bertha was perfectly competent, highly manipulative, and showed clear signs of antisocial personality disorder with narcissistic features. When it was the prosecution's turn, they called Craig to the stand. "Dr. Bowen," Reynolds began, "you've been practicing clinical psychology for 15 years. Have you encountered patients with Munchausen by proxy syndrome?" "Multiple times, yes." "In your professional opinion, based on your observations over 12 years of marriage to Sophie Galloway, did Bertha Galloway show signs of this disorder?" Objection. Carr jumped up. "Dr. Bowen has a clear conflict of interest and cannot provide objective testimony about his own mother-in-law." "Your Honor," Reynolds countered, "Dr. Bowen is one of the foremost experts in covert family abuse. His credentials and observations are directly relevant to establishing Mrs. Galloway's competency and intent." The judge considered. "I'll allow it, with the understanding that the jury will weigh any potential bias." "Continue." Craig turned to face the courtroom, his voice clear and authoritative. Bertha Galloway exhibits classic signs of Munchausen by proxy combined with narcissistic personality disorder. This isn't a case of delusion or mental incompetence. It's a case of calculated, predatory behavior disguised as maternal devotion. He spent the next hour methodically destroying the defense's narrative, explaining how Bertha's actions showed clear intent, planning, and understanding of right and wrong. He detailed the forum posts, the deliberate medication tampering, the strategic isolation of Sophie, the attempts to frame him for murder. Mrs. Galloway knew exactly what she was doing, Craig concluded. She's not delusional. She's simply a predator who got caught. Carr's cross-examination was aggressive. Dr. Bowen, you admit you suspected your mother-in-law was poisoning your wife for months before her death, correct? Correct. Yet you continued allowing Mrs. Galloway access to Sophie. You prioritized building a legal case over your wife's immediate safety. How many lives could you have saved if you'd acted sooner? Craig had prepared for this. I took every action I could without evidence that would hold up in court. I changed Sophie's medication suppliers, monitored her care, documented everything. But without proof, going to authorities would have resulted in Bertha gaining more credibility and access, while I lost both. She'd have turned it around, claimed I was the abuser. And given her standing in the community versus mine as the controlling husband, she would have won. So you let your wife die to build a case? I watched my wife die because a system designed to protect abuse victims routinely fails when the abuser is a charismatic, well-connected woman who knows how to manipulate social perceptions. Craig's voice was hard. Bertha Galloway operated for 30 years because people couldn't believe a mother could be a monster. That's the system's failure, not mine. The courtroom erupted. The judge called for order. Carr tried to recover. Your actions show cold calculation. You documented your wife's suffering like a clinical case study rather than fighting to save her. Doesn't that suggest? It suggests I'm a psychologist who understands how covert predators operate and what evidence would be needed to stop one permanently. Craig locked eyes with Bertha, and it worked. She's sitting right there, exposed for exactly what she is. Bertha's mask slipped. For just a moment, pure hatred crossed her face before she recovered her fragile grandmother act. But Craig had seen it. The cameras had caught it. And more importantly, the judge had seen it. When Carrie testified about her childhood, about Brad's death, about the years of manipulation and control, Bertha's attorney tried to frame it as difficult family dynamics rather than abuse. But then the prosecution played the forum posts. Bertha's own words, describing her daughters as possessions, discussing tactics for maintaining control, celebrating when her interventions kept her children dependent. The courtroom watched in silent horror as the mask completely dissolved, revealing the narcissistic predator beneath the grandmother facade. And then came Craig's final move. Your Honor, Reynolds said, the prosecution calls Bertha Galloway to the stand. Carr objected immediately. My client is not required to testify, especially given her mental state. Your defense claims she's delusional and incompetent, Reynolds interrupted. If that's true, surely she can't effectively communicate her confusion. But if she can testify coherently, it undermines your entire defense. Which is it, counselor? The judge smiled slightly. I'll allow it. Mrs. Galloway, you may take the stand if you wish, or exercise your right to remain silent. Craig watched Bertha's face. She was trapped. If she refused to testify, it suggested she understood the legal implications, proving competence. If she testified, she'd have to maintain her act under cross-examination. And Bertha, narcissist to her core, couldn't resist the spotlight. I'll testify, she announced. I have nothing to hide. Craig settled back in his seat. The trap was set. Chapter 8, The Breaking Point. Bertha took the stand with practiced grace, the fragile grandmother persona firmly in place. Her attorney led her through softball questions designed to paint her as confused, grief-stricken, acting irrationally. Mrs. Galloway, can you explain what you were thinking when you brought medication to Sophie? I was trying to help my daughter, Bertha's voice quavered. She was so sick, and the doctors weren't listening. A mother knows her child. I thought if I supplemented her treatment. Were you aware these medications could be harmful? I didn't understand. I'm not a medical professional anymore. It's been so long since I practiced nursing. I just wanted to ease her suffering. Craig watched the performance with clinical detachment. Bertha was good. He'd give her that. Tears at the right moments, confusion when pressed on details, the perfect image of a loving but misguided mother. But then Leanna Reynolds stood for cross-examination. Mrs. Galloway, you say you're not a medical professional. Yet you filled prescriptions in Sophie's name without her knowledge, using your nursing license number. Were you confused about that too? Bertha hesitated. I may have made mistakes. Grief does things to people. Grief? This was 6 months before Sophie died, when you were already planning, according to your journal entries, how to intervene in her life. Those journals are private. They're just a mother's worried thoughts. Worried thoughts. Reynolds pulled up a projection of Bertha's journal entry. Let me read this one, dated 8 months before Sophie's death. Craig suspects something. I need to be more careful. But the endgame is clear. Sophie cannot continue down this path. If she won't come back to me willingly, I'll force the issue. Her death will be tragic, but it will free Lily from Craig's influence. And with Craig in prison, I'll have everything I've worked for. The courtroom was dead silent. That doesn't sound confused, Mrs. Galloway. That sounds premeditated. Bertha's face flushed. You're twisting my words. A mother's fears when watching her daughter under a man's control. Let's talk about control. Reynolds pulled up the forum posts. You wrote extensively about managing children's independence, about maintaining necessary influence. You shared tactics with other mothers in your group about how to keep adult children dependent, how to sabotage relationships, how to, and I quote, remind them who they truly belong to. Those forums were support groups for mothers whose children are brainwashed by spouses, brainwashed, or simply living their own lives. Reynolds approached the stand. Mrs. Galloway, you've claimed multiple times that Craig controlled Sophie. Can you provide any evidence of this control? He isolated her from family. Sophie saw you 3 times a week until her final month of life. That's not isolation. He manipulated her medical care. He took her to 5 different specialists seeking the best treatment. Her medical records show he advocated aggressively for her care. He turned her against me. Or she was trying to establish healthy boundaries with a controlling mother, and you couldn't accept it. Reynolds pulled up Sophie's phone records. We have texts from Sophie to her sister Carrie, dated over the past 3 years. May I read a few? Carr objected, but the judge overruled. Reynolds began reading. Mom called again, crying about how I've abandoned her. I see her multiple times a week, but it's never enough. Another text. Mom showed up at my doctor's appointment uninvited, told the doctor I was confused and depressed. I'm not. But now the doctor looks at me like I'm unstable. And this one, from 6 months before Sophie's death, Mom brought me special vitamins. I didn't ask for them, but she insists I take them every day. I've been feeling worse since I started. Craig thinks I should stop, but Mom gets so upset when I suggest it. Bertha was sweating now, her composure cracking. Sophie was confused by her illness. No, Mrs. Galloway. Sophie was clear. She knew something was wrong. She recorded you tampering with her medication. She documented her symptoms. She tried to protect herself. Reynolds' voice rose. And when she made that video, when she finally had proof of what you were doing, you manipulated your 6-year-old granddaughter into deleting it, didn't you? I was protecting Lily from seeing something traumatic. You were destroying evidence of your crime. And you threatened Lily to keep her quiet. If you tell anyone, Daddy will go away and you'll be all alone. Those were your words, weren't they? Bertha's mask shattered. That child needed to understand. Understand what? That her grandmother was murdering her mother. I was saving her. Bertha's voice exploded through the courtroom. Sophie was ruined. Completely under Craig's control. She'd become someone I didn't recognize. Independent, questioning me, putting him first. She forgot who raised her, who sacrificed everything for her. I gave her life. I had every right to take it back when she was wasting it. Absolute silence filled the courtroom. Reynolds' voice was quiet. You just confessed to murder, Mrs. Galloway. Bertha seemed to realize what she'd said, but the dam had broken. Years of carefully constructed lies and manipulations came pouring out. She was my daughter. Mine. I created her, molded her, made her who she was. And then Craig came along with his degrees and his analysis and his poisonous ideas about independence and autonomy. He turned her against me, made her think she could have a life separate from me. Well, I showed him. I showed everyone. She was mine until the very end. And the poisoning? Reynolds pressed. It wasn't poisoning, it was correction. She needed to remember who she depended on. who truly loved her. The medications made her need me again, made her see how much she relied on her mother. Until she died. Bertha's eyes blazed with unrepentant fury. Until she was free from him. Better dead than continuing as Craig Bowen's pet project. The courtroom erupted. Carr was on his feet, trying to stop his client's confession. The judge was calling for order. But Bertha wasn't done. You all think you understand, but you don't. A mother's love is total, absolute. These children, they're ungrateful, entitled, thinking they can just walk away from the women who birthed them. She turned to Craig, venom in her voice. You think you won? You think exposing me changes anything? Sophie died, knowing her mother loved her more than you ever could. And Lily, you think you can keep her from me forever? She's my blood. She'll come back to me eventually. They always do. Craig stood, his voice cutting through the chaos. No, Bertha. She won't. Because unlike you, I'll teach her that love isn't about ownership. It's about freedom. Something you'll never understand from prison. Bertha lunged at him, guards restraining her as she screamed obscenities and threats. The fragile grandmother was gone, replaced by the monster she'd always been. The judge banged his gavel. Mrs. Galloway, you are remanded into custody pending sentencing. This hearing is adjourned. As guards dragged Bertha from the courtroom, still screaming about her rights as a mother, Craig felt the weight of 6 months lift from his shoulders. Not relief. The pain of losing Sophie would never fully heal. But justice. Carrie grabbed his arm. Oh my God. She really believed all of it. She still does, Craig said. Narcissists like Bertha never truly comprehend that other people are real, separate beings. We're all just extensions of themselves, or obstacles to be removed. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed. Craig gave one brief statement. Bertha Galloway just proved what I've been trying to tell people for months. She's not delusional. She's not confused. She's a calculated predator who used maternal devotion as a cover for abuse and murder. And she's not unique. There are others like her, enabled by systems that can't believe mothers can be monsters. It's time we change that. The video of Bertha's courtroom breakdown went viral. Within 24 hours, 3 more women from her online forum were under investigation. The FBI had opened a formal inquiry into the support group that had actually been a coordination network for child abuse. And Craig had become the face of a movement, helping people recognize and escape covert family abuse. But he still had one more move to make. Chapter 9. Ashes to Renewal. 6 months after Bertha's conviction, 3 consecutive life sentences without parole, Craig stood in front of a new building in downtown Seattle. The sign above the door read, "The Sophie Galloway Foundation for Family Safety." Beside him, Lily held scissors for the ribbon-cutting ceremony, her smile shy but genuine. Mommy would like this, right, Daddy? She'd love it, sweetheart. The foundation was Craig's final answer to Bertha's legacy. It provided resources for identifying covert family abuse, support for victims, and legal advocacy for those trying to escape controlling relatives. It trained law enforcement and medical professionals to recognize Munchausen by proxy and similar disorders. Most importantly, it believed victims when they reported abuse, even when the abuser was a charismatic, well-respected parent or grandparent. Carrie had joined as co-director, using her experience to help other adult children of narcissistic parents navigate the complex trauma of recognizing that the person who should have protected them was actually their predator. The investigation into Bertha's online network had exposed 12 other cases of suspected murder or serious abuse. 3 women were arrested. The others had their children removed and were under investigation. The Devoted Mothers forum was shut down, its members scattered, but Craig knew there would be more. Predators like Bertha were everywhere, hiding behind love and concern while slowly destroying the people they claimed to cherish. At least now, people knew what to look for. After the ribbon cutting, Craig and Lily drove to Evergreen Memorial. They sat together at Sophie's grave, the Seattle skyline visible in the distance. I still miss her, Lily said quietly. So do I, sweetheart. Every day. But I'm not as sad anymore. Is that okay? Craig pulled his daughter close. That's exactly how Mommy would want it. She'd want you to be happy, to grow up strong and free and kind. Like you taught me. Like Mommy taught both of us. Craig looked at the headstone, Sophie's name engraved simply beside dates that came too soon. You know what the best revenge is, Lily. What? Living well. Being happy. refusing to let bad people make us small or scared or cruel. Craig smiled. Grandma Bertha wanted to destroy our family, wanted to control everything. But we're still here. We're healing. We're helping other people. And she's alone in a cell with nothing but her own poison for company. That's sad for her. Craig looked at his daughter, seeing Sophie's compassion reflected in Lily's eyes. You know what? You're right. It is sad, but it's also what she chose. She had so many chances to love without controlling, to support without manipulating. She chose differently. We won't choose like that, will we, Daddy? No, sweetheart. We won't. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, the breeze carrying the scent of roses from Sophie's grave. Craig's phone buzzed. A text from Detective Ponce. Another family came forward. Your profile helped identify the pattern. We're opening an investigation. You saved another kid. Craig showed Lily the text. See? This is how we honor Mommy. By making sure other families don't hurt like we hurt. Lily nodded seriously, then surprised Craig by asking, Can I help? When I'm older. You already are helping, sweetheart. By being brave. By telling the truth. By being the kind of person who makes the world better instead of worse. As they drove home, Craig reflected on the past year. He'd lost his wife. He'd battled a monster. He'd exposed a network of predators. He'd become a somewhat public figure, his face associated with family advocacy and psychological justice. But most importantly, he'd protected his daughter. He'd made sure Lily would grow up knowing the truth about her mother's death, understanding that love and control were not the same thing, and seeing that even in the darkest situations, strategic thinking and patience could bring justice. That night, after Lily was asleep, Craig opened his laptop to Sophie's old photography portfolio. He scrolled through images she'd captured, sunsets over Puget Sound, Lily's first steps, flowers in Pike Place Market, moments of beauty in an often ugly world. Sophie had seen light everywhere. Even while being poisoned by her own mother, she'd looked for beauty. She'd loved fiercely and freely. She'd trusted Craig to protect their daughter when she no longer could. Craig made a silent promise to the woman in those photographs. I'll teach Lily to see the world like you did. I'll make sure your light continues. And I'll never let predators like your mother operate in shadows again. He closed the laptop and pulled out a journal, his own, this time. Not clinical observations or legal documentation, but simple writing. Processing. Healing. Dear Sophie, 6 months since we buried you. 6 months since I finally stopped Bertha. 6 months of learning how to be both parents to Lily. The foundation is open. We're helping people. Your story is saving lives, not just the way it ended, but the way you lived. With courage and kindness, even when both were hard. Lily is doing well. She has nightmares sometimes, but she's resilient. She has your strength. I see you in her every day. The way she finds wonder in small things, the way she cares about people, the way she refuses to let fear make her small. I miss you. I'm angry that I couldn't save you. I'm grateful that I could at least bring you justice. Mostly, I'm trying to honor you by being the father Lily needs and the man you believed I could be. Bertha thought she'd won by killing you, but she lost everything. Freedom, family, the narrative she'd spent her life building. And we gained something she could never understand. The ability to love without controlling, to grieve without bitterness, to heal without forgetting. That's our victory. That's our revenge. Not just that she's in prison, but that we're free. I love you. I'll always love you. And I promise, I'll keep our daughter safe. I'll teach her about real love, real strength, real justice. You can rest now. We've got this. Craig. He closed the journal and turned out the light. In the next room, Lily slept peacefully, a picture of Sophie on her nightstand. Outside, Seattle continued its eternal rain, washing the city clean, starting everything fresh. And in a prison cell 300 miles away, Bertha Galloway sat alone, her perfect mask finally, irrevocably shattered, facing the consequences of mistaking ownership for love. Justice had come. Not quickly, not easily, but completely. And Craig Bowen, husband, father, psychologist, and survivor, had learned the most important lesson of all. The strongest revenge isn't destruction. It's survival. It's healing. It's taking the worst thing that can happen and transforming it into purpose. It's refusing to let monsters win, even when they've already taken everything they can take. It's being the light in the darkness, the voice for the voiceless, the proof that even predators can be stopped. And most of all, it's teaching the next generation that love without freedom is just another name for captivity, and that true strength lies not in control, but in letting go. This is where our story comes to an end. Share your thoughts in the comments section. Thanks for your time. If you enjoy this story, please subscribe to this channel. Click on the video you see on the screen, and I will see you there.